A timeless journey. This is not just Buddha's story, it's yours too. Welcome to one of the most powerful and inspiring stories ever told. This is not just a tale from the past. It's a mirror for your own life. A story that reflects your questions, your struggles, and your longing for peace. The story of Buddha isn't just about a prince who left his palace. It's about a person, just like you, who looked around, saw the world's pain, and dared to ask, why do we suffer? Is there a way to end this pain? And he didn't stop until he found the answer. You may be here to improve your English. You may be curious about history or just looking for something meaningful. But as you read this story, something deeper will begin to happen. You will start to understand not only new English words and expressions, but also powerful life lessons. Lessons that can change the way you see yourself and the world around you. This story is filled with beauty, courage, heartbreak, and wisdom. It's not just the story of an enlightened being. It's an invitation. An invitation to look inside, to ask the hard questions, and to begin your own journey toward understanding, peace, and freedom. So take a deep breath. Let this be more than just reading practice. Let this be a journey. Let it be the beginning of something extraordinary. The birth of a prince. A child destined to change the world. Once upon a time, in the lush and peaceful land of Lumbini, a baby boy was born under extraordinary circumstances. The sky was clear, the flowers bloomed with radiant colors, and the air carried a calm unlike any other day. This was no ordinary child. His name was Siddhartha Gautama. The world would one day know him as the Buddha, the Enlightened One. Siddhartha was born into luxury, the son of King Suddhodana and Queen Maya, rulers of the Shakya clan. From the moment of his birth, signs suggested he was a special being. Legends say Queen Maya gave birth beside a blossoming tree. The newborn took 7 steps, and with each step, a lotus flower bloomed. Wise men foretold a great destiny. He would become either a powerful king or a spiritual teacher who would change the world. Hearing this prophecy, the king grew concerned. He wanted his son to rule, not to renounce the world. So he built a life of comfort and isolation for Siddhartha. The prince lived in grand palaces, surrounded by beauty, music, and endless pleasures. Pain, sickness, and sorrow were hidden from him. The king believed that if Siddhartha never saw suffering, he would never seek a spiritual path. And for many years, this worked. Siddhartha grew up enjoying the best of life. He was kind, intelligent, and admired by many. He married Yasodhara, and they had a son named Rahula. He had everything: family, wealth, and happiness. But deep inside, he felt something was missing. Despite all his comforts, a quiet curiosity began to grow in him. He started to wonder, what lies beyond these palace walls? One day, with his father's permission, Siddhartha went on a journey outside the palace. As he rode through the city, he saw an old man, bent and frail, struggling to walk. Siddhartha was shocked. He had never seen someone so aged. What happened to him? He asked. That's what happens to all of us, the man replied. We all grow old. Next, Siddhartha saw a sick man lying in agony. Again, he was troubled. What is wrong with him? He is ill, said the charioteer. Sickness can happen to anyone, rich or poor. Then he saw a dead body, surrounded by people mourning. Siddhartha was horrified. Is this what happens to all people? He asked. Yes, the charioteer answered. Death comes to everyone. Siddhartha's heart grew heavy. For the first time, he realized that life was not only about pleasure and beauty. It was also filled with aging, illness, and death, truths he had never faced. But the journey didn't end there. He saw one more figure, a calm, peaceful monk sitting under a tree. The monk wore simple robes, had no wealth, yet his face glowed with contentment. Siddhartha asked, Who is he? The charioteer answered, He is a seeker of truth. In that moment, everything changed for Siddhartha. He realized that wealth and comfort could not protect him from suffering. That night, the seeds of his journey to enlightenment were planted. The story of Buddha, the Great Awakening. The Great Awakening, the first glimpse of human suffering. After witnessing the realities of aging, sickness, and death, Siddhartha Gautama returned to the palace, but he was no longer the same. The golden walls, the fragrant gardens, the sounds of music, they no longer brought joy to his heart. His mind was restless. His soul was unsettled. He couldn't forget the old man who could barely walk. He couldn't unsee the sick man trembling in pain. And the image of the lifeless body surrounded by weeping loved ones haunted him deeply. Siddhartha had always believed that life was meant to be full of happiness and beauty. Now he knew the truth. Suffering was everywhere, and no one could escape it. He asked himself questions that had no easy answers. Why do people suffer? Is there a way to avoid pain? What is the true meaning of life? These thoughts grew louder and heavier in his mind each day. Though he had everything, it suddenly felt like nothing. Even the presence of his beloved wife Yasodhara and his young son Rahula could not soothe his heart. Siddhartha loved them deeply, but the questions burning inside him were stronger than comfort. He realized that he could not protect his family from suffering either. They too would grow old, get sick, and one day die. One night, while the palace slept in silence, Siddhartha made a decision that would change the course of history. He quietly kissed his sleeping wife and son goodbye. With a heavy heart, he stepped out of the palace, leaving behind a life of wealth, power, and luxury. He chose the path of truth, even though it was unknown and uncertain. Dressed in simple robes, Siddhartha walked into the forest where he met ascetics, holy men who had also left their homes in search of enlightenment. These men believed that the path to truth was through pain. They starved themselves, slept on the ground, and meditated for hours without moving. Siddhartha joined them and pushed his body to the limit. He ate a few grains of rice a day. His bones showed through his skin. His strength faded, but he hoped that through suffering, he would find peace. For 6 long years, Siddhartha lived in extreme hardship, but the answers did not come. His body grew weaker and his mind more clouded. One day, as he sat near a river, he fainted from exhaustion. A kind woman named Sujata found him and offered him a bowl of warm milk rice. Siddhartha accepted it, and slowly his strength returned. In that moment, he had a profound realization. Starving the body was not the way to awaken the mind. Self-torture was no better than self-indulgence. He needed balance, a middle path. Siddhartha left the group of ascetics who now doubted his path, but he had never felt more clear. He traveled to a place called Bodh Gaya and sat beneath a large fig tree, later known as the Bodhi tree. There, he made a vow. I will not rise from this spot until I find the truth. He crossed his legs, closed his eyes, and began to meditate. He turned inward, observing his thoughts, his breath, and the very nature of his being. Days passed, the winds blew, rain fell, but Siddhartha remained still. Temptations came. The demon Mara, a symbol of inner fear and distraction, appeared with storms, beautiful illusions, and terrifying visions. Mara tried to shake Siddhartha's focus, whispering doubts into his ear, but Siddhartha stayed calm. His mind was steady like a deep river. He faced every temptation with silence and awareness. And then, on the night of the full moon, something incredible happened. Siddhartha's mind opened like a flower blooming in the sunlight. He saw the truth clearly, the cause of suffering, the cycle of birth and death, and the way to end pain. He became the Buddha, the awakened one. Through his deep meditation, he discovered the 4 noble truths. 1. Suffering, dukkha, exists. Life is full of pain, aging, illness, death, and emotional struggles. 2. There is a cause of suffering. It is attachment, desire, and craving for what we do not have. 3. Suffering can end. By letting go of desire, we can find peace. 4. There is a path to the end of suffering. It is the noble eightfold path, a way of living with wisdom, ethics, and mental discipline. These truths were not rules or dogma. They were observations, universal and timeless. At last, Siddhartha had found what he had been seeking all along, not outside but within. Enlightenment was not in palaces or forests, not in indulgence or starvation. It was in understanding. It was in letting go. The Buddha rose from his meditation filled with compassion, clarity, and peace. But he did not keep this wisdom to himself. He was ready to share it with the world. The story of Buddha, the middle way and the teachings, the middle way and the teachings. A path of balance and wisdom. After his enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, the Buddha remained in deep meditation for several days. He reflected on all that he had discovered, the truths about life, suffering, and the path to liberation. As peace filled his heart, he realized something even greater. He could not keep this wisdom to himself. The world was suffering, and the world needed to hear the truth. But he also hesitated. Would people understand what he had learned? Would they be ready to hear such profound truths? As he sat in contemplation, it is said that the gods themselves encouraged him to share his knowledge. They reminded him that even if most people were lost in ignorance, there were some whose minds were open, like flowers ready to bloom with just a drop of rain. With compassion as his guide, the Buddha stood up and began to walk again, this time not in search of truth, but to share it. His first destination was the deer park in Sarnath, where he found 5 ascetics who had once practiced extreme self-denial with him. They had left him before, disappointed when he abandoned harsh practices. But now, as they saw him approach, something had changed. His face was radiant, his presence calm. He seemed transformed. At first they resisted, but as the Buddha spoke, his words carried a deep truth. He explained that he had discovered a middle way, a path that avoided the extremes of self-indulgence and self-torture, a way of balance, a way to live with awareness, compassion, and clarity. He taught them the 4 noble truths and introduced the Noble Eightfold Path, a practical guide for ending suffering. Right view, understanding the truth of life and seeing things clearly. Right intention, choosing thoughts and actions based on kindness and wisdom. Right speech, speaking truthfully, kindly, and without harm. Right action, acting ethically and with care for others. Right livelihood, choosing a job or way of life that does not harm others. Right effort, cultivating positive qualities and letting go of negative ones. Right mindfulness, being aware of the present moment and your own mind. Right concentration, developing deep focus through meditation. The 5 ascetics listened. Slowly their doubts faded. One by one they understood. They saw the wisdom in the Buddha's words. They became his first disciples and formed the beginning of the Sangha, the community of spiritual seekers. From there, the Buddha traveled across northern India, teaching anyone who would listen, rich or poor, king or beggar, man or woman. He welcomed all. He did not care about caste, status, or background. He believed that truth belonged to everyone, not just a chosen few. Wherever he went, crowds gathered. People were drawn to his presence, not just his words. He lived simply, walked barefoot, and accepted whatever food was given to him. He taught by example, showing that peace and wisdom did not come from wealth, but from understanding and letting go. He taught that life is constantly changing, and suffering arises when we cling to what must pass. But freedom comes when we accept change and live with awareness. He spoke often of compassion, not just as a feeling, but as a way of being. To live with compassion meant to act with care, to forgive, to help others, and to recognize that we are all connected. When we hurt others, we hurt ourselves. He also taught the power of mindfulness. To be mindful was to be awake to your thoughts, your actions, your emotions, and the world around you. Through mindfulness, even ordinary moments became doors to deep insight. Over time, thousands followed his path. They studied, meditated, and practiced the middle way. Some became monks and nuns. Others remained in the world, but applied his teachings to daily life. The Buddha didn't promise his followers that life would be easy, but he gave them tools to face life with strength, peace, and wisdom. He didn't claim to be a god or a savior. He was a guide, a teacher who pointed the way, but reminded each person, "You must walk the path yourself." His message was timeless and universal. Suffering exists, but it can be overcome. The path is open to all. The story of Buddha. The final journey and life lessons. The final journey and life lessons. The end that illuminated the world. As the years passed, the Buddha's teachings spread across the land. People from all walks of life, merchants, farmers, kings, and beggars, came to hear his wisdom. Monasteries were established. Disciples continued to grow, and the message of the middle way flourished. But even the enlightened one could not escape the law of impermanence. His body grew old and fragile. Still, his mind remained as calm and clear as ever. He continued to walk, to teach, to sit with anyone who sought truth. When the Buddha sensed that his final days were near, he began one last journey. He traveled to a peaceful town called Kushinagar. Along the way, people gathered to pay their respects. Many wept, knowing they were seeing their teacher for the last time. In Kushinagar, he lay down between two sal trees. The trees bloomed out of season, as if nature itself wished to honor his passing. His disciples gathered around him, hearts heavy, eyes filled with tears. But the Buddha was serene. He looked at them and spoke softly. "Everything that arises must pass away. Strive diligently for your own liberation." He reminded them once more that no external teacher or God could save them. The truth was within. Each person must walk the path with mindfulness and effort. Then, quietly and peacefully, the Buddha passed into parinirvana, the final release from the cycle of birth and death. He had lived with wisdom, compassion, and deep awareness. And in death, he remained the perfect example of his teachings. His followers were heartbroken, but they understood that the greatest tribute they could offer was not grief, it was to live the teachings. And so they continued to spread his message, not just through words, but by the way they lived. Today, over 12,500 years later, the Buddha's story still touches hearts around the world. His life reminds us that peace does not come from escaping life, but from understanding it. That suffering can be transformed into strength. And that love, mindfulness, and wisdom are more powerful than fear or anger. So what can we learn from the Buddha's journey? Be present. Life is happening now. Don't get lost in the past or worry too much about the future. Pay attention. Breathe. Appreciate this moment. Let go of attachment. Everything changes. Clinging to what must pass causes suffering. Learn to accept and let go. Live with compassion. Every act of kindness creates a ripple. When we care for others, we heal the world and ourselves. You don't have to leave your home or sit under a tree to begin this path. You simply have to start paying attention to your breath, your thoughts, your actions. Bit by bit, you will begin to see more clearly. The Buddha's journey is not just his story, it's yours. It's a reminder that no matter your struggles, your fears, or your doubts, you too have the power to wake up. So take a deep breath. Walk your path. And remember, the light you are looking for has always been inside you.